Salvia is in the Lamiaceae, which has about 7,000 species, and includes many familiar things like basil, lavender, coleus, teak, oregano, bee balm, lemon balm, catnip, and of course sage. Sage, Salvia, is the largest genus within Lamiaceae with about 1,000 species. Salvia has three major centers of diversity. The first one being in the Mediterranean region with about 150 species. The second major center of diversity within Salvia is East Asia, primarily China and Japan, with about 100 species. There's a small radiation in South Africa with about 30 species. Another fairly small radiation in the southwestern United States, mostly in the California forested province with 19 species. And then the largest radiation is in Mexico and South America with about 600 species. So Salvia, along with its sister genera, Lepchinia and Melissa, is in the I should say tribe, cross out that sub. Anyway, and they're in the subtribe Salviniae here. Salvia's sister, Melissa and Lepchinia, pretty easily distinguished by the fact that Melissa and Lepchinia have 4 stamens, whereas Salvia has 2 stamens. And this has been a common theme throughout this group. In the red, you can see 2 stamens, and the green is 4 stamens. So superficially, Salvia is most similar to Lepchinia, but Lepchinia has, again, 4 stamens. It has a typically actinomorphic calyx, foliate leaves, and non-mucilaginous seeds, whereas Salvia has 2 stamens, bilateral calyx, and mucilaginous seeds. Mucilaginous seeds are the seeds that develop a mucilage when they get wetted. If you ever had chia, the health food thing, that you know what I mean by that. Trying to get out of your sponge. And Melissa is also sister Lepchinia and sister to Salvia. Melissa, really the only characteristic I can think of that Melissa is similar to Salvia in is the fact that it has a 5-point calyx, is strongly zygomorphic. Otherwise, it has 4 stamens and is morphologically distinct from Salvia. Sorry about that. So traditionally what's defined Salvia is this staminal lever mechanism. And what this is basically is a situation where you have a pair of theca that block access to the corolla tube, and an insect or a bird has to push against that theca in the corolla tube in order to access nectar. And so doing, deposits pollen on its body somewhere, and then transports that pollen to another plant, and that's believed to promote outcrossing and believed to be a key innovation, potentially a key innovation within the genus Salvia. And that's traditionally defined the genus. And that's also believed, it's also believed that that's contingent upon a 2-stamen condition. So evolutionarily, we've gone from 4 stamens in Melissa and Lepchinia to 2 stamens and a gradual elongation of the connectives in the theca. In most Salvia, the posterior, the bottom theca are sterile, and that forms the boundary, which would be right here, or the barrier at the mouth of the corolla tube that insects have, or birds have to navigate. And this has a bunch of different forms. There's a few examples of that, how the anther connected is modified in different ways. The length varies, the position varies, and the flavor of the lever mechanism varies. And it's really different across different clades. So here's just an example of some of the different forms of the staminal lever mechanism and the connectives that are associated with that. Importantly, this lever mechanism has been lost in several of these groups that have developed the staminal lever mechanism. Here's some examples of bee-pollinated salvias. You can see there's a bunch of different forms associated with that. Some examples of hummingbird pollinated flowers, hummingbird pollinated salvias, and there's also sunbird pollinated salvias in South Africa. So this pollination syndrome isn't limited just to hummingbirds. So Jay Walker showed in 2004, 2007, there's been a bunch of studies that have subsequently showed this. There's been 5 genera embedded within Salvia, and these genera do not have the staminal lever mechanism. And subsequently, this has generated some taxonomic controversy as to what to do with Salvia. Really, it boils down to 2 major options. One, retain the names of the 5 embedded genera and make requisite name changes in Salvia, or number 2, subsume the 5 embedded genera within existing Salvia and change those names. And that would require option 1 would be 700 name changes, option 2 would be 15 name changes. We've advocated for option 2. But there's an argument for the other way too. It's certainly not a one-way. They're both phylogenetically defensible. We have advocated for option number 2. And the rationale for option number 1, from a morphological standpoint, and that's those without embedded genera, and you can see the staminal inactive, so lack thereof within those genera. The rationale for breaking salvia up is that the lever mechanism that's traditionally defined salvia has evolved multiple times, and because of that, because the traditionally defined morphological feature of salvia is apparently paraphyletic, each of these clades at least should be new genera. I should point out, however, that that has never been formally tested, whether the lever mechanisms evolved once and been lost multiple times, or evolved several times independently. And again, even within these lineages where the lever mechanism has evolved, there are instances within those lineages where the lever mechanism has been lost in various ways. So it's not just the 5 embedded genera that don't have that mechanism. So with Sanger sequencing, the subgeneric designations are usually well supported. However, the relationships within subgenera are not supported, and the backbone of the tree is either not resolved typically or poorly supported. So for this talk, I'd just like to give an overview of what we've done with anchored hybrid enrichment data with 116 taxa so far, rational analyses, and discuss some of the relationships and also some of the subgeneric classifications. So this is a RoxML tree with 400 low copy nuclear genes. You can see with the green arrows, these are the embedded genera. We do not have Mariander in this, however, we are sequencing it currently, so we'll have this in there soon. Anyway, you can see that these genera are well supported as part of Salvia. So backs up Sanger sequencing data, but there's no question about the support with this tree. In general, the relation, Melissa and Lepchi are also recovered with as sister of Salvia. In general, the relationships within the lineages are pretty well supported also, usually with 100% bootstrap support, sometimes with lower support, but still good support. The exception to that would be up here in Calisaceae, the largest group in core Calisaceae. And within that group, there's still a few nodes that have poor resolution. So in red, there's nodes that have less than 50% resolution. So even with all this data, some of these closely related species or species complexes are still difficult to disentangle, even with the loaded data. But it's much better than most before, for sure. This is the plastome tree, and the asterisks indicate nodes with less than 100% bootstrap support. For the most part, the backbone is well supported. The relationships are more or less the same as in the nuclear data. The only major difference between plastome and nuclear data along the backbone is right here with Salvia Diversity, which was formerly Zumeria. With the nuclear data, this was sister to Salvia Diversity right here, and with plastome data is sister to this whole group of East Asian and North American taxa. But similar to the nuclear data, the relationships within Calisaceae are still pretty messy. So you can see all those red asterisks within the subgenus Calisaceae from Mexico and South America. There's a lot of nodes that are pretty poorly resolved with chloroplast data. And this would be, for the most part, both plastomes, just bycatch from the targeted enrichment. And this is an image showing the relationship between the plastome and nuclear data sets. For the most part, congruent, but within, again, Calisaceae, there's quite a bit of incongruence going on, which shouldn't be surprising because there's a lot of fugitive hybridization also within that group. So now I'd like to move on to the subgeneric classification. Some of these have already been formalized. We're formalizing currently some of the other ones. And this again is based on this anchored hybrid enrichment data, primarily on the low copy nuclear gene data. The first subgenus we've named is, or just already named, sorry, is Calisaceae, and this again is Mexican, South American, with about 600 species. The next is subgenus Salvia. This is primarily Mediterranean, Southwest Asian. This also houses a type specimen, Salvia piscinalis. So if Salvia were to be broken up, this would be the Salvia clade. The next is subgenus Sclerea. This is a formally recognized subgenus, but we modified the parameters of it. This also occurs in the Mediterranean, Southwest Asia, but also occurs further into, more commonly into Central Asia. Subgenus Audibertia is the subgenus, the group that occurs primarily in the California forested province, but also spreads out a little bit into adjacent states and into Baja California. Subgenus Dorstachys is monotypic, and it's endemic to the Antalya region of Turkey. And this was formerly the genus Dorstachys. Subgenus Mariandra has two species, one in India, one in Northwest Africa, and again, used to be the genus Mariandra. Subgenus Parovskia is the largest of these smaller genera with 8 species, primarily occurs in Central Asia, formerly the genus Parovskia, and the most controversial of the name changes, subgenus Rosmarinus, which was named Salvia back in the 1800s at one point, so it wasn't crazy to name it Salvia. It has a really elongated connective, very similar to the California forested province mints. Anyway, that's got 3 species and primarily is in the Mediterranean region. And Zumeria, just endemic to Iran, 1 species, and yeah, really a rare, endangered species in Iran. And then subgenus Glutinaria was formalized in a paper last year focusing on East Asian salvia, and this has about 100 species, and other than 2 species occurs in China, Japan, and Korea. There are 2 other groups though that we're still trying to work out. This group down here and this group up here. The group up at the top, which includes Zumeria, we're considering making an expanded subgenus Zumeria. And this would include not only the monotypic former genus Zumeria, but Salvia Diversity, Salvia Egyptica, Salvia aristata, and a clade of Central Asian taxa in former USSR countries. This is a very morphologically heterogeneous group, and really we don't have good sampling within this group yet, although we do have several of these submitted, so we should get better sampling soon. What will most likely happen is we will name these at least 3 different subgenera, including Zumeria, but maybe even 4. And even more problematic than that, these are all old world, is this possible subgenus Heterostaceae. And this not only is morphologically very different, as you can see from these pictures, but also geographically very different. So it occurs in Asia, it occurs in Europe, it occurs in South Africa, and it occurs in the New World. So geographically, it's all over the place. It's only about 40 species, but geographically very widespread. And also morphologically very different. As you can see, the lever mechanisms in these taxa are very different. The pollination syndromes are very different. And the gross morphological gestalt of the taxa are very different. And so most likely, this again would be broken up into 5 or 6 subgenera. It's worth noting that if you were to follow the avenue or follow the route of breaking up Salvia, that the logical course of action would be to take this group of 40 species and probably make 5 or 6 genera out of it, because yeah, they're as morphologically disparate as anything in the whole genus is. So, and with that, I'd like to thank everybody for helping out on this, and I'll take questions.
We have time for a quick question while we switch.